Could tonight be the night the Denver Nuggets win the NBA championship? Is tonight the night this young man and that guy and this guy and that guy covers an NBA champion? Also, who got it worse, the Heat mascot from Conor McGregor or the golfer Adam Hadwin trying to celebrate with Nick Taylor? Oh!
Big Reggie White energy. Reggie White, yes.
Incredible camera work, too.
It was.
My guy Bernie needs hazard pay, Tone.
Courtney Cronin, you can see you've got 3 points. Here's an even 5, or an uneven 5, to start, because you had the hot take before we sat down that it was all over for the Heat once Conor McGregor dropped the mascot. Tonight, Nuggets Heat Game 5. The Nuggets 48 minutes from their first ever championship. I don't need to say any more. Okay, maybe just one thing. The Heat think Tyler Hero will suit up and give it a go tonight. George Sedano, I turn to you. You've been telling us all playoffs how the Heat can do it. But for tonight to be the night for Denver, what's the number one thing that has to happen?
Tony, it's really as simple as just doing what they've done all postseason, which is basically maul people for the most part, right? Like, they have gone through these playoffs with pretty, almost at ease in a lot of ways. They're 15-4 thus far. But individually, I think there are a couple of things they can do. Defend the three-point line. In the first 2 games, Miami got incredible quality opportunities from the three-point land, and Miami capitalized on those in Game 2. They've done a much better job in Games 3 and 4 of defending the 3. They've almost sold out, really, on defending the 3. So I think that's a key component, particularly with Tyler Hero potentially coming back. And I also think Eric Spoelstra could have something up his sleeve in regards to how much they've been willing to try to sell out for defending the three-point line. And then lastly, Aaron Gordon. A prominent Western Conference coach told me during the season, if Aaron Gordon goes off against you when you're playing the Denver Nuggets, you have no chance of winning that particular game. And if you look at it, they're undefeated when he scores 15 points or more in this postseason, in this particular playoff series. So Aaron Gordon is a huge key.
And just one follow-up, George, since you've spent time in the huddle for both these teams, but especially for Denver, Michael Malone. And is there any pressure about trying to close it out at home for the first time in franchise history tonight?
There's always pressure, Tone. I don't think that this team, though, really gets – I don't think they're going to feel that type of stuff. I think if they happen to lose this game, it's because Miami played an incredible game. Miami has to play a near perfect game to win against the Denver Nuggets. I'm not saying that's impossible, but that's the only way I think Denver loses, barring some sort of injury.
And Pablo Torre on tonight, the night Denver's waiting for.
But Tony, speaking of pressure, I want to focus on not Aaron Gordon, who is exactly as spectacular as George just said. And I don't want to focus on Nikola Jokic, who is obviously the best player on the planet right now. I want to focus on Jamal Murray, because when pressure is applied to him in the postseason, he becomes a totally different human being. There is nobody in the history of the NBA playoffs, Tony, John Hollinger did this analysis, that is more in terms of scoring, rebounding, assists. Altogether, he has the biggest jump in performance of anybody we've ever seen in the sport. And this is over a decent sample size now. And so when Nikola Jokic is struggling, as he did, relatively speaking, in the last game, Jamal Murray is there to have his 4th straight NBA Finals game with double-digit assists. He is somebody who becomes a 25-point-per-game scorer when the pressure is on. So to me, what do the Nuggets need to do? Just have Jamal Murray be exactly who he's been every time he enters the playoffs. It's been that easy for him.
Pablo, you're tipping your hand who you might vote for MVP in this series? Should it come to that place with 2 minutes to go in tonight's game? It sounds like you're more on Murray than Jokic. Tinsley, I turn to you now on what the one thing, maybe, number one above all, that Denver needs to do tonight.
Man, we talk so much about Denver's offense, but their defense, especially these last 2 games, has been really, really good. And Denver's 3 wins, they've held Miami to under 33% from 3. And you look at the other players on the Heat, like the Nuggets have taken them out. outside of that first quarter in game 2, Max Strus is 1 for 24 1 for 24 for the series. Gabe Vincent, the Nuggets have held him to 9 points, combined in the last 2 games. So theoretically, Tyler Hero's return makes a lot of sense. But in reality, he's missed the last 2 months. He's also coming back with the game, with the season literally on the line in that altitude. So that's a lot to ask for a Miami Heat team. And the Denver Nuggets also understand we want to celebrate this on our home floor, and I think they get it done on the defensive end, and that's going to be a cause for celebration.
And Courtney Cronin.
The Heat have pushed this talent, Tony, as far as they can go. And the Tyler Hero news about him going to attempt to try to play tonight is total desperation with this team down 3-1. The only way I see Miami making this game competitive and potentially forcing a game 6 is if, with Hero in the mix, they can get more of that shot volume that they've been missing. That's something that Eric Spoelstra has really emphasized, because throughout the playoffs, teams that have the higher field goal attempts, which include trips to the free throw line, off of those field goal attempts, win 59% of the time. In those situations in the postseason, the Heat are 8-4 when they have the advantage of more field goals. When they don't, they're 3-5. That's the only way they keep this thing close to
Dano back in.
Tony, in regards to Tyler Hero, this thing, I know he's missed 2 months, as Justin mentioned, but this is tailor-made for him. Denver runs a drop, okay? And they've been dropping deeper and deeper and deeper to defend Bam from being a playmaker. Tyler Hero eats in the mid-range. If he's going to get comfortable, this is the opportunity for him. And pressure is not something that he tends to worry about. I mean, go back to the bubble, man. That kid performed in a huge way in that bubble season, particularly in the playoffs. I believe he was one of the youngest players to ever score 30 points in a finals series, in a finals game. So I'm not worried about that. But again, Miami has to play near perfect.
Pablo Torre after Horn.
Yeah, but George was talking about where Tyler Hero likes to eat on the court. I believe the Denver Nuggets will just eat Tyler Hero. He is a zero defensively. You have all of these guys, all of this depth that we're talking about, bringing back a guy who has not played in months, who does not defend when he's healthy. Please leave him
back
on the
against the wall,
Miami.
act of desperation, and here it is. Make the pick time, Pablo Torre. Sounds like you've got Denver.
I'm taking Denver.
And Justin Sidsley.
Denver.
Courtney Cronin.
Nuggets in 5.
Dano.
I'm taking the Heat tonight, Tony.
Thought you might. You like that. Hero versus the drop defense. Okay, we'll see. Woody Page, be there and with us tomorrow. We move on now to how professional golf ended the most chaotic week in its history with a tremendous moment at the Canadian Open. Here's Jim Nantz on a great call.
Left the flag stick in, the maple leaf flag. Good pace. Are you serious? Oh my goodness! Woo. Glorious and free.
Nick Taylor, first Canadian in 69 years to win the Canadian Open, doing it dramatically. A 72-foot eagle putt once they measured it on the 4th hole of a playoff. He says he doesn't remember anything because he blacked out. And then when his friend Adam Hadwin came in to celebrate with him, he got mounted by security. Look at that! Standing on guard for thee! Pablo, does one 72-foot Canadian prayer have you feeling more optimistic about golf after the week it just had?
Tony, it does. And by the way, this is the event at the center of the Venn diagram of all of the clouds of smoke wafting into our city and also the geopolitical smoke wafting into our entire national sports discourse. And so, yes, I felt good in a way that was jarring to me. I felt good in a way that was jarring because this is what I want from golf. I want the green. I want the course to be rushed like it's a college game. I want someone, and by the way, I would blame that security guard for tackling that dude, except I also did not know who that dude was until it was explained to me afterwards. So I want all of the content. I want all of the Nancian celebrations. This is why this can be fun if golf lets itself be fun, and I just don't think it needed all of the background smoke that I alluded to get to this point, which is why it's a bummer.
Justin Sidsley.
Look, golf is going to have to answer for last week for a long, long time, and honestly, they should. But, Tony, a 72-foot walk-off eagle was already insane. But to do it and accomplish something that hasn't been done in your country in nearly 70 years, and a Canadian hasn't won in Canada since 1999. As somebody who's taken golf lessons this year, that was hands down one of my favorite moments in golf in a long time, and it will absolutely be one of the better moments in sports in 2023 when it's all said and done.
Courtney Cronin.
What a year for Canada. He's the 4th Canadian to win on the PGA this year, which is a record. And considering all of the business part of golf that was talked about, and we still don't actually know what the merger, don't call it a merger, between the PGA Tour and Live Golf and the DP World Tour is going to look like. So we get a 4-hole playoff here, and Taylor started the weekend with a 72. He was tied for 120th. So to come surging back in this moment and win in this sort of fashion, this is what makes golf fun. And for a second, I actually thought I was at the Waste Management Open because I haven't seen champagne beer showers like that since February.
George Sedana.
Tony, I'm with Pablo here. This is the closest we're going to come to a Happy Gilmore sequel, the way that thing transpired at the end with the long shot and, of course, the tackling of one of his colleagues. But here's the thing. To Courtney's point, yes, he shot at 75. He was 120th going in. But it's been 40 years since someone has been that far back in the pack and won a tournament. Like, that to me is wild when you think about it. So the fact that Taylor was able to provide that, all the pomp and circumstance that came with it, it's just an incredible moment for someone to win the Canadian Open, a Canadian to win the Canadian Open first time since 1954. Okay, like that in itself, you understand why this thing was as big as it was.
U.S. Open, you're up. Next tournament, if you just roll right into that. Okay, so here it is, the debate of the day. Who got it worse? The Heat mascot from Conor McGregor, all right, which the first punch you could say was probably set up. The second one was right in the nose. Or Adam Hadwin, the golfer who got tackled here by the security. Sorry.
Yeah.
Who got it worse?
The mascot.
Adam Hadwin,
lost
I
the
know
game.
his name. No, I know who that guy is now. Would prefer a anonymity if I was either of them.
McGregor
got a
was
second
walking
all the
pain
way.
medication,
Got
by the
sent
way.
to the
I told you how
hospital.
set up it was. All right, buy or sell
mascot
next.
took 2 punches.
Which is record-breaking moment. Usually when you break an all-time career mark, it's a long, hard journey, and this, of course, was. But this one was straight sets in the final, and he's won 6 of the last 8 Grand Slams he's played in. Total domination. The all-time men's singles major winner at 23. George, here's the debate. Novak Djokovic is the greatest, most dominant tennis player, and right there, men's and women's major wins is in front of you, of all time. Buy or sell?
Tony, this is a very difficult question. I would say the short answer is yes. 388 weeks as the #1 ranked player. Incredibly impressive. I know Roger Federer had 237 consecutive, so his peak was wild. But he's had at least, he's won each Grand Slam at least 3 times. And he almost got the calendar slam in 21. If he gets the calendar slam this year, and he's already got 2 of them, then I think it's definitive in his case.
Courtney Cronin.
He's only getting better with age. 12-9 during Grand Slam finals in his 20s. He's 36. 11-2 during Grand Slam finals in this era of his 30s. No sign of slowing down either. He said he's not even thinking retirement. I will say, though, this big 3 that we've had in tennis with Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, the first 2 set the bar super, super high for Djokovic to have to get to. The fact that he's there is a credit to them for getting him there in the first place.
Oh, I thought you were going the other way there. The fact that he got where he is now, above them,
Big credit
against
to
the
those
greatest
2 for
competition.
setting the bar so high.
Okay. For a comparison's sake, since Serena's in this conversation, who was her big 3, right? Who was she going up against? They're not on the same list we just showed. Justin Tinsley, I turn to you.
Yeah, I have a hard time saying Serena isn't the GOAT, but from a male perspective, it's definitely Djokovic. You just said 6 of his last 8 Grand Slams that he's played in, he's won. He's about to be the #1 player in the world again. And look, if he gets this calendar Grand Slam, the conversation is over. The Wimbledon is up next. He's won the last 4 Wimbledons. Like, this is rare air that we're talking
Pablo
about right
Torre.
here.
Yeah, and that's why I think the conversation is already over, actually. And I say this focusing exclusively on the tennis because the guy has a lot of wacko opinions otherwise. But on the tennis court, Tony, many stats have been mentioned. Here's my favorite one. 55 points were played by Novak Djokovic in Paris. He had 0 unforced errors. What he becomes on the court, yes, there is artistry, yes, there is mastery. He is somebody who is more mistake-free than anyone I can recall in sports in general. And so for that reason, and the tonnage of accomplishments and the degree of difficulty given the opponents that Courtney just mentioned, he's the greatest.
Yeah, to me, that's the
speaking.
selling point there, Courtney. I heard you going the other way there. Serena Williams had to be better than Venus, who's an all-time great, and Maria Sharapova, right? an all-time great, but that's not Nadal and Federer. And to see Djokovic get to 23 right now, the way he has 6 of the last 8, whereas Serena was trying to get to 23 all those times. I mean, it's just,
he might get 30.
Some people can do 1 or 2 or 3 of the things. He seemingly did it all. He's going to go for the career Grand Slam 3 times over, and do it in one season now. Is that his table too? We'll move on. Saquon Barkley, not at Giants minicamp today, says he won't be all week, has not signed the franchise tag. Told the New York Post he's day-to-day until July 17th. That's the deadline for that signing. If not, he'll see. Says he's not looking for a record deal. It's about respect. Courtney, are you sensing a holdout or a sit-out in this situation?
I think we're getting to that territory. I think there's also a lot of regret, Tony, from his side. Remember, there was a deal on the table right around the time of the Giants' bye week last year in November that was an estimated $14 million a year, a little bit more than the 10.1 he's making on the franchise tag this year. I don't think they get to July 17th and have a long-term deal worked out, and I don't think that he will end up with the New York Giants until the 11th hour. Remember, he doesn't have to show up for training camp. He's without signing the franchise tag. He doesn't have a contract to work with there, so he wouldn't be fined $50,000 a day and be in that dangerous territory.
Courtney expects them to hunker down here. This could be a while. Tinsley, how do you see it?
Man, I really hope this gets done before training camp because he's one of the most respected guys in that locker room, and also he's the team's leading rusher and receiver. But as Courtney just said, part of me thinks he should have taken that $14 million, and it's not a knock on him. It's just how the league values running backs, or doesn't value them, rather.
You thought he should have taken the 40. Sedana, you're shaking your head no about that, what Tinsley just said.
Tony, he's the most important offensive player in that team by a long shot. The Giants are in this conundrum because they decided to bid against themselves by giving Daniel Jones a $40 million contract. They should have franchised Daniel Jones in that scenario to give themselves at least potentially a little more wiggle room with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, to me, is a top 5 running back. He's got 101 yards from scrimmage this past season. Only guys like Kamara and McCaffrey and Derrick Henry have those kind of numbers. He deserves to be paid like a top 4 or 5.
Courtney disagrees with what you just said, but I got to go to Pablo first. We haven't heard from Pablo here, and this is New York.
But listen, the reality of being a top 5 running back this offseason is that you're getting franchise tag. That has happened to all of them in that class. And so this is all saber rattling, Tony. This is about whether Saquon Barkley will sit out the season. And if you're the Giants and you evaluated him at that level and you say, we don't like his injury history, but we like him as a talent, I think you dare him to sit out because Le'Veon Bell was the last guy we saw do that. He has vocally regretted wasting a year in his prime from doing that. And so I don't think he ends up sitting out. I think he comes back begrudgingly under the franchise.
Courtney Cronin gets the last word.
The Giants played this thing perfectly given the state of the running back market. They don't need to give him that $14 million a year offer. Look at what Miles Sanders just got. Look at what David Montgomery just got. And by the way, they've added a lot of weapons at the receiver position, and they have Darren Waller. So who blinks first? I think it's going to end up being the running back. Whew.
Thank you for your thoughts there, Courtney and Justin Tinsley. But it's the George Sedano, Pablo Torre showdown next. From softball, as Oklahoma celebrates that championship just a few days ago, Jordy Ball, star pitcher, 2-time All-American, 2-time national champion as a sophomore, transferring out of Oklahoma, says she's going home. We can assume that means to Nebraska. She's from Nebraska. Ball was just named the World Series most outstanding player. How monumental is this, George?
Tony, it's huge, but she's earned the right. She has, in 2 seasons, a 1 ERA with 397 strikeouts, and in Oklahoma City, 24 2/3 scoreless innings. The NIL opportunity's going home. Whatever she needs, she's earned that right.
Yeah, she's 44-2. She's incredible. But what I love about this, Tony, is what we talked about on Friday. This is an evil empire, Oklahoma is. It's okay to call them that. Now they have a defector. They have tension, potential blood feud, I hope. This has the potential to be exciting.
Okay. We don't need to call it a blood feud, but these programs have a way of reloading once they lose somebody. We'll split the point. We'll move on. Pa Yankee, John Sterling, hit by a foul ball this weekend. You got to watch this.
A pop foul. Back here. Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
The man is 84 years old, but he didn't miss a beat. It was 2 pitches later that he was able to say, Yankees win! Yankees win! What a marvel. Pablo Gray, John Sterling.
Oh, an A+, Tony. This is the sound of my childhood. And granted, John Sterling has never been great judging the distance of baseballs in general.
How dare
but
you,
my God,
Pablo.
I'm glad he's good. He's okay. He's okay. It's all
Tony,
good.
he needs to
What?
be. Tony, he gets an A+++. That man should be in concussion protocol and finish the damn game and said, Yankees win. Kind of like George Sedano wins.
Let me hear your best.
Don't
It is
indulge
high, it is
that.
far, it is gone, Pablo. Let me hear it.
It is high. It is far. It is still, unfortunately.